continue first. All right. Good evening once again. So quickly, this class is not going to last long because I have another class coming up by 9. So we may not use more than 1 hour and a few minutes. All right. So yesterday I can say that we have laid the foundation. I believe by now we should all know what is Python programming language, what it can be used for. We explained all that in yesterday's session. And we have also looked at some of the basic syntax in Python, which a beginner should start with. We have know how to set up the PyCharm development environments for Python coding. And we have also learned what is comment in programming generally and how to go about it, particularly in Python. Then we have also looked at the Python printing command, which I told us that is used mainly for outputting our results. Then we also talk about the Python new line printing. And then that was just what we did yesterday. In this session, we'll be looking at a few things. But we are going to start from string concatenation. We're going to start from string concatenation, parts of what we're supposed to have done yesterday. So let's just quickly complete it before we look at another Python function. So we are expected to cover two major functions, input function, and we also look at variable concepts and how to use variable to collect a different data type and some of the rules that are attached to the implementation of variable. So let's start with our string concatenation. String concatenation. So what do we mean by string concatenation? So for now, depending on when we will get to data type properly, we should just understand that generally in programming, the word string means text, and it's usually captured with the double quotes or single quotes. So when we say concatenation, it means joining two different strings together. Ordinarily, it could have been printing them separately, but you can concatenate them and be able to output them using one printing command. So like I said, string concatenation means combining different strings. And for us to look at the example, let's look at example of how to concatenate string in Python. So let's assume I want to print my two names. Let's say I want to print my two names. So the first name, I'll take it first. And I can just say, okay, let's say we want to concatenate greeting and the person's name. Let's say hello, Prosper, or hello, Victor. So I could just say, okay, the first string is hello, which is greeting. And the concatenation is denoted with the plus sign. So the plus sign is an operator in Python. Then I'll call the next string, which is what? Hello, Prosper. This is what we mean by string concatenation. So if I run this code, let me run our current code. You will see that we will end up printing the two strings. You can see it here, hello and prosper. But there's a challenge here. The challenge is that we notice that there's no space between the two words. So it's either you print them in block, that is using the new line, or you concatenate empty space before the last string. So how do we achieve that? I will just concatenate another string here. So let's say this. And then I will add the plus sign between these two. Then if you run the code again, you will see that you are going to have space in between. So what I did here is to concatenate empty space. That is after printing print an empty space before you print prosper. So that is how to print, how to concatenate two or more string. I hope that is understood before we go to the next topic. It's a very simple concept. It's something that we can understand from yesterday's section. So let's look at another major function now in Python. Another major function is, let's look at the input function. Input function before we talk about variable. So all of these are fundamental things you need to know. That is why I am trying to, quickly make us to understand them, because in the course of further coding, you see us using print, you see us using comments, you see us using input. So then it will be clearer to us. So let's look at the function of the input function. Now in Python, the input function is used to collect users' information. So I can say it's used to collect users' information. It's used to collect users' information. Now, the idea is that we want to deviate from what we call hard coding or hard programming to what we know as soft programming. For example, you want to create a kind of text holder to receive certain information from the users. That is, at the moment, you don't know who you collect, or you don't know who you want to collect his or her information, but you are providing a container for them to fill in their names or their other information. So in that scenario, you are going to use the input function. So let's look at an example. Let's look at an example on what to do with the input. So I can just say input as a function, and then I want to collect the person's name. So I will say, what is your name? What is your name? What is your name? For instance, what is your name? So if I run this code, it's going to ask the user to submit or provide their name. Now, where do you provide the name? You don't provide the name here. You provide the name here. So you come after the question mark and type, let's say you are answering the question now. What is your name? My name is Prosper. And then hit enter. And that we output what is your name? And then your name is Prosper. So let me run the code again and see what is your name, Prosper. I'm expected to get the Prosper under the code, but I'm looking at, hope I'm under the file. So I'm supposed to get Prosper. So you can run your own there. Let's see. Let me just comment this one out. Have you opened your editor? Because at times we need to be comparing to know if. So if I run the code again, just want to have only this. Impute. So I want you to run this same code. Let me see what you are going to get there. I'm waiting for your response. I don't think there's any error here. I'm waiting. Let me wait to. So we are supposed to get an output that prosper under it. So while I'm waiting for you, let me assume that we want to print it. I think that is the reason why we are not getting a result, because we are supposed to print it. We are supposed to print it. So, which means that if I can just cut this, Control X. So we are supposed to print it, put it in the print function, and then I'll print it. So if I run it this time around, I'm supposed to get the answer now. So you can see it. So you can see the power of the print function. So you cannot just write the input and then allow it, because you need to attach, you need to wrap it in the print command for you to see the outcome. So it was actually collecting the value, but it was looking for the output command before you can get it. Now, the question now is, which will lead us to a different techniques. If you look at this now, you cannot reuse this as far as this program is concerned, because this is just an output. It's not held or stored anywhere. All right, so now we want to, apart from that, because that would take us to variable concepts. But before variable, let me just try as much as possible to complete these basic things before we move into the variable. Let's assume that you want to print greeting. You want to greet the person after collecting the person's name. So how do we communicate that? Using the same input concept. So what I am going to do here is, so in other words, the task is greet the user after collecting his or her name, after collecting his or her name. So now, the way we are going to speak it in Python, we are going to say print, because we want to see the outcome. And then that greeting aspects will first of all what? Concatenate it. So which means that this time around we are concatenating the greeting section with the name we are collecting. So once we get the name, it will add it to what? Hello, the name. So let's say we want hello. Now we want to concatenate it with, let me concatenate empty space as well to avoid both of them merging. Then before you bring in the input function, inside it. Then we can now say what? What is your name? What is your name? What is your name? Question mark. Now remember something that I told you yesterday, that it is possible that the person can on his or her cap lock before supplying the name. But I want a situation whereby whichever format the person use, the Python should return it to what? Lowercase. So even if the person type the name in capital letter, Python shouldn't print that capital letter. I want Python to print it in lowercase. So which means that I will have to concatenate. I will have to concatenate lower together with that. So I will have to concatenate now. So now, which means that if I run this code, and then let's say I supply the name Okoro, and I press enter, you can see that it returns it to what? Lowercase. So we've talked about this before. So let me wait. Are you writing the code alongside with me because of time? Maybe you take your time later because I really want to. I will not be
Yes,
able
I'm
to.
writing it down. Continue.
Good. I will not be able to give you time because we are economizing our time. So now, let's quickly look at variable now properly. Python variable. Python variable. So what do we mean by variable? Not just in Python. Variables are used to hold value. They are used to hold values in programming. So whether you are using Python or you are using other programming languages, once you hear the word variable, it means that the programmer is introducing information that are not in the program memory by default. And there is a reason for introducing this information or acknowledging this information in the program memory. Now, like I said before, you cannot actually program without using information or data. So let's assume that you want to develop an app or a simple calculator that can multiply two values or add two values or even subtract two values. You will then ask yourself whether these values that will be involved in your calculation, are they already built in Python? If the answer is no, the next question you ask yourself is that, so how do you now acknowledge them in Python? And that is why we cannot, it's almost impossible to program without a variable, because all the information that will be needed for your programming, they are not embedded or inbuilt in the program. So you have to find a way of, bringing them in. That is why I said variable is a container which is used to hold value. And these values are held for your programming purpose. Now, that will now take us to variable syntax. Now, remember what I told us about syntax. Syntax in programming means a set of rules that guide us in writing programs. It means format. It means the structure. So we just have to know that variable has 3 sections. If one of them is missing, you are going to get error. So what are the variables section? We have a part of the variable, which is the first one, that is called what? A variable name. We have the name section, the name part. Then we have the name part. Then the second part of variable is called assignment. It's called assignment, which is denoted with what? Equal sign. Single equal sign in programming means assignment. So I'm going to explain it better once I write the full variable. Now, comma, the third part of variable is the value. The value. So the value is the content, what you are storing. So what we are saying is this. Let me illustrate it. Anytime I mention variable, see it as container. Just like this. See it as container. Now, you can declare a container without putting anything inside it. And I want you to know that variable can only hold one value. Variable cannot hold what? 2 values. Variable can only hold what? 1 value. Now, you see this pipe that is sending the value into the container. That is what the equal sign here does, which is the what? The second variable section. Now, the value, what is piping inside this, can be string. In other words, you can store string. You can store what? String in the variable, in the container. You can also store what? Numbers. So probably in the next section, we'll be talking about what? Data type. You understand it? You can store numbers in your variable. You can also store another basic data type like Boolean. We can store what? Boolean. Like I said, after variable, we'll be looking at data type. Then you understand it very well. So the point I am registering here is that there are different rules. There are different protocols that need to be followed when you are storing string in a variable, when you are storing number in a variable, when you are storing Boolean in a variable. So that will be taken care of properly when we get to data type section. But I just want you to know how we can create variable. Now let's look at the variable declaration now. Variable what? Declaration. Which means what? Initiating variable. How do we initiate it? So like I just told you now, you start with the name of the container, which is the variable. And please, I want us to know that there are rules that guide us when you are naming your variable. Number one, your variable must not start with number. You can't name your variable and start with number like this. No. Variable name should never start with number. That's rule number one. Rule number two, variable should not be named number or true. I can name my variable like this, pros 1, 2, 3 is allowed. But you cannot start with the 1, 2, 3 pros, right? So that is another rule. Another one is that you must not use a keyword. You must not use a keyword. You must not use a keyword, which means that you cannot use print. You cannot come and say print is equals to the name of your variable. No. So take note of all this. They are forbidden in programming. Now, the next one is that in case you are considering the casing, that is the appearance of the name. You know, we have lowercase, we have uppercase. You are to use camel case. That is the standard practice. That does not mean that you cannot use lowercase. You are permitted to use camel case. So what is camel case in programming? I say what? Camel case in programming. Camel case in programming. Camel case means if I'm using two words as the name of my variable, let's say what? First name. First name. That is, first is one word. Name is the second word. The programming standard says that the whole of that first name, the first word, should be written in small letter. So which means that what? First, like this, should be what? Small letter. Then you can decide to add underscore. Do not space between the first word and the second word. So if at all is either you merge them together or you separate them with underscore, then every other word should start with capital letter, while the rest should be what? Small letter. So this is allowed in programming. Then equals to, so this is the name. This is the name of the variable, like I pointed out in the syntax section. The variable has a name, then followed by the assignment section, which is denoted with the equal sign, and then followed by the value. So I've created a variable and I've added the assignment operator. Now, the value I want to store here will determine whether it's a string or whether it's a string or it's a number. Can you hear me? Just give me. All right, so so I was trying to make a point here. Now that you want to store value in that variable, you need to know the type of value you are storing in order to know the rule that's are to be obeyed. Now, when you look at this first name, it means that we want to store text-based data. And the rule says that it should be wrapped in single quotes or double quotes. Any of them are accepted. So now I can say I'm storing what? My first name is Prosper. Now, in Python, you don't need to say you want to end this line of code. So Python uses the first line to close, the second line to close the first line, unlike other programming languages. So the moment you press enter, it means it will close the first line. Now, how do we now print the value of our variable? Now, you are going to use the print command, and then you simply pass in the name of the variable, which is the first name, and then you run your code, and then you get what? Now, let me comment this one out so that we can focus on what we are writing. So if I run it, so I have the value of the variable called out. I hope you are following. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
All right. So have you started your program?
Yes.
Is it blinking or is okay now?
No, it's working now.
Okay.
I shared the screen in the beginning of the class, so I
Okay.
tested it.
All right. So that is how to work with variable. Now let's do something. Let's see how we can manipulate the value in the variable, or how do we check the type of data stored in the variable? Let's look at that. What do I mean? I
I don't
just
know
told
if
us
it is Boolean or string
good,
or
good, exactly. So let's find out. So in Python, to check data type in a variable. In a variable, we use a function called dot what type. And the syntax is you want to print that data type. So you wrap it in print, and then you type what dot, sorry, a type. So type is the function. Then inside the type, you supply the name
the
of the
variable
variable.
name.
Good. So let's say I want to check uh the value in this. So I'll click, and then Python will tell you that the class is what? String. So that is one thing we can do. What we are learning right now is how to how to manipulate the value in the variable. So another thing we can do is the value in this variable. You printed everything, Prosper. Let's assume that I want to print only one letter from the variable value. I want to print letter P from this entire variable value. That will now take us to what we call Python indexing. So which tells us that in almost all programming, where you have array of items, the very first one is always at index 0. So let me illustrate it. What we are saying is that this Prosper, this P has a numerical what? Positioning, which is what? 0. While this R has a numerical position, which is 1. And then the O has its own, which is 2. And then the S has its own, which is what? 3. And then the P has its own, which is 4. And so forth like that. Now, the logic is that the way programming languages counts value is that it counts what you have before the item you want to count. And then if I can ask us, or if I should ask us, what we have before the P is 0. That is why P is at what? 0. Now, for me to count R, I will have counted the P as 1. That is why R is at what? Index what? 1. Before I can count what? O, I will have counted P and R, which is what? 2. That is why O is at what? Index 2. I hope you understand that concept now. So using this logic, we can now call out individual value from the variable instead of printing all. So let me target how to print uh, only, let me put it, only some values in a variable. How to print only some value in a variable. So the syntax is going to be, I'll say print, then I'll call the name of the variable that I want to access that particular value. So in this case, we want to print what? The P. And then you will now use the square bracket like this. The square bracket. Anytime the square bracket is used, most time, It means from the entire bunch of items, you want to what? Pick some. That is what it means. So, and logically, we can translate it to what? Selection. That is from the entire prosper, we want to select P. So now that we know that P is at 0, I will use the what? The index number to call it out. So if I run it, it's going to print out only what? P. So this one is called positive what? Indexing. So if I want to print range, which means that I want to print from one particular letter to another, we call that what? Slicing in Python. So let me put it here in case you are making your note later. Slicing variable values. Slicing variable values. So which means that, for example, the task given to us is that slice from 0 index to 2 index. So let's assume this is a task. So the way I'm going to print it is going to be print, and then the variable name, this is first name. From first name, slice from 0, you put column like this toward 2. Now, mind you, the last one will be destroyed. So if you run it, you see that what? Instead of slicing to 2, then that 2 will be what? Destroyed. So you get the value before the 2. That is why we are getting what? PR. All right? Hope you understand this. Is it clear to you?
Yes.
Now, the next thing we want to look at is that, like I said, all the selection we have been doing since falls under positive what? Variable value selection. Now, if I want to slice from or select from the negative side, now in Python programming, you cannot say if you want to start with, let's say I want to print what? R from here. So printing from the right-hand side to the left-hand side does not start with 0. It starts with the real word 1. So which means that if I'm to print the R, the last R, I am going to, so let me tag this in case you are making your note. This is a negative slicing, which means that I'll simply say print the name of the variable, and then from that I am taking -1. So you start with the minus, so which means that you want to call value from the left-hand side, that's from the right to the what? To the left. So if I run this code, I am going to print out what? R. I hope that is understood. Now, another thing is this. If I do something like this, I just put the column and then I put what? 2. Can you suggest what is going to happen? In this case, I did not define the start point. I only pick from a particular place. So what and what do you think could be printed out if I run this code?
PRO.
Huh?
The first 3 characters.
The first 3. Okay, let's run it and see. You see what happened? So it printed what? Now, if I put -2 here and I run this, you can see what happened now. It means it will start what? Did you see what happened? It cut off the last 2 words. The last 2 values are displayed from that last 2 value to the first value. So these are some techniques that you need to know. But now, let's look at how we can apply this variable concept in that input, that the input function, how we can use the variable and the input function. So let's say what? Using variable and input function. So what we want to achieve, like the other time when we did something like this, print, remember when we did something like this, print, and we now added the input function and then collected the person's name. Let's see what is your name. Sorry, what is your name? You know, remember I told you that, yeah, it will print the person's name, but that name is not held anywhere. It's not stored anywhere, which means that you cannot make reference to it after this time. So we want to print and store in a variable just to simplify our code. So what I'm going to do is this. So I'm going to first of all what? Collect the person input and store it in a variable. Then I will print the name. So I will say the person's name is equals to input, what is your name? For example, what is your name? So if I run this code now, that is already what? Taken. Now let me see if I can comment all this to avoid, so I can focus on the particular one we are executing. So let me stop it and run it again. So I have what? What is your name? But if I enter my name is Prosper. I press enter, you can see what happened. So the name has been collected and is what? Held in name. So which means that
Name.
if I want to see it, this time around, I will just use what?
Can
Print.
print name.
Good. I'll just what? Print name. So if I print now, if I print, let's say, what is your name? So Prosper, run it, then it will what? Output it. I hope you are following. Is that clear to you? I hope that is clear. So let's look at one more topic, because we will be ending this class by 8:30. I have another class coming by 9, so I need to rest for 30 minutes. So the next topic is how to check variable what? Length. How to check variable length using a function, using len function. So the emphasis is you knowing that there is a function called len, which is an abbreviation of what? Length. So it means what? The field size, how long, how many characters are in the variable. So there are times it means counting. You want to count how many characters are in a variable. So for example, I can say print, since we have created a variable, I can say print len. I'm adding the function inside the print, and then supply the name of the variable I want to check the size. So if I run it, it will print, let's say what? Prosper. And then when you run it, you get what? 7. So that is how to use the len function. Because when we get to developing apps, you will see at some point using all these basic concepts we are discussing right now. So it is better we understand them before we get to the complex aspects. Any questions so far? So that is where I am going to stop. Any question?
No, no problem.
All right. So your assignment is to practice all this. I want you to make sure that you create a new file. All this, go through the video and make sure that you replicate everything that we have covered. You can twist them the way you want. You can even create variable that stores numbers and perform some arithmetic calculation ahead. So in our next meeting, we'll be looking at we'll look at few topics, Python. We'll look at Python operators. What we call operators. We should be able to look at data types in Python and how to manipulate them. And then we should be able to look at how to manipulate them actually. So there's no question, we will stop here. So make sure that practice. So like I told you, outside those feast days, if I'm chance any day, I will communicate to you. And if you are also available, we schedule class. The same thing to you. If you have chance outside the days, to reach out to me. If I check my schedule and I'm free, we can continue so that that will reduce the time to enable us to finish the program on time. All right, good night for now.
Thank you. So the recording, when will I receive it?
I've sent you did you receive the one of last class?
No,
No or yes?
no.
Okay, so I'll check. I think I've uploaded it. What you do is that once I send it to you, make sure that you subscribe to that YouTube page so that once I upload, you get a notification. Once you see Python, you know that it's your class. Though there's another class that is going on, but at least you will know within the time we are having the class. So I'll try and send it. I'll send the other one now. And then this one will be converted and sent to you.
Okay, no problem.
All right.